All right, welcome. Today, we are going to dive into something pretty fundamental: knowledge itself. We're going to explore the very structure of how we know what we know and how just understanding that structure can unlock some absolutely incredible progress. We're talking everything from huge scientific breakthroughs all the way to national prosperity. So, I want to kick things off with a question that kind of challenges an assumption most of us have. We tend to picture progress, especially scientific progress, as this steady, orderly march forward, like we're just adding one brick after another to a big wall of facts. But what if that's completely wrong? What if real, meaningful progress actually happens in these massive, disruptive leaps that basically tear the old wall down and start over? So, on one side, you've got this traditional view of development by accumulation. It's nice, it's tidy, it makes a lot of sense. But on the other side, you have this philosopher, Thomas Kuhn, who came along with a much more chaotic idea. He said that real progress happens through revolutions, these sudden, jarring shifts that totally change the game. To really get what it means for science to be upended, we have to look at Thomas Kuhn's landmark 1962 book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. This book completely flipped our understanding of the history of science. And his ideas? They've since been applied to, well, everything, from economics to politics. Kuhn breaks this whole process down into 4 phases. He coined the term paradigm. And you can basically think of a paradigm as the operating system for science at any given time. So in step 1, you have normal science. Everybody's running the same OS, just solving puzzles and working within the rules. But then, step 2, anomalies start popping up. These are glitches, results the system just can't explain. And if enough of those glitches pile up, you hit step 3, crisis. Nobody trusts the old OS anymore. And that right there opens the door for step 4, a full-blown revolution, where a bold new operating system gets installed and the world looks completely different. And here is an absolutely crucial point. These new operating systems, they are not accepted right away. Look at this quote. When Copernicus first came out and said the sun was at the center of everything, his model wasn't actually any better or more accurate than the old one. It was messy, he didn't have slam dunk proof, and frankly, his colleagues were totally right to be skeptical. A new paradigm doesn't just win overnight. It's a long, hard-fought battle. As you can see from this timeline, it took more than 140 years for the Copernican model to actually become the standard scientific view. You needed Galileo to completely rethink the physics of motion. You needed Kepler to figure out the math of elliptical orbits. And then finally, you needed Newton to come along and tie it all together with his universal law of gravity. It is a slow, messy process of building credibility piece by piece. Okay, so that's how new knowledge gets created in science. But what about when powerful, proven knowledge already exists, but it's just not being used? This isn't just some academic thought experiment. This kind of knowledge gap can have a massive impact on the prosperity of an entire nation. Just take a look at these numbers. We're not talking about inventing a new scientific paradigm here. This is all about applying what we already know works. The difference in agricultural productivity between the US and India is, well, it's staggering. 5 times more productive for maize, nearly 4 times for tomatoes. And researchers think that a huge chunk of this difference, maybe more than half, comes down to a knowledge gap. And if you want to see the sheer potential here, just look at this number: 303%. In one experiment in Kerala, farmers simply applied the agricultural knowledge that's common in California. They didn't use any new land, no better seeds, no different inputs, and the yield of black pepper shot up by over 300%. That is not a small adjustment. That is a life-changing improvement just waiting there to be unlocked by knowledge. And this gap isn't only about applying the knowledge we already have, it's also about a country's ability to create new knowledge. There is a really strong link between how much a country spends on research and development and its overall prosperity. It becomes this virtuous cycle, right? Generating new knowledge lets you apply it, which fuels more growth, which lets you invest more in generating even more knowledge. So all of this leads to a pretty deep question. If the benefits of closing these knowledge gaps are so enormous and so obvious, why are they so hard to fix? Why is it so difficult for us as individuals and as entire societies to even see what we don't know? Well, the answer might actually be hidden inside our own brains. Unskilled and unaware of it. This phrase is actually the title of a famous psychology paper from 1999, and it just perfectly captures this frustrating little quirk of the human mind, a cognitive bias that can literally keep us trapped in our own ignorance. And here it is, the Dunning-Kruger, effect. So what is it? Well, in a nutshell, the very skills you need to be good at something are often the exact same skills you need to recognize how good or bad you are at it. So if you don't have those skills, you don't just perform poorly, you lack the mental tools to even realize you're performing poorly. It's a total cognitive blind spot, and this helps explain why those scientific pioneers we talked about, like Copernicus, faced so much resistance. They were trying to explain something to a world that was literally unaware of its own blind spots. So what do we do about it? How do we build a society that's actually aware of its own gaps and is actively trying to close them? For the last part of this explainer, we're going to look at a really bold, practical vision for doing exactly that, which comes from a paper on transforming India into a knowledge society. The whole foundation for this vision is education, and the goals set were, well, they were incredibly ambitious. We're talking about getting to nearly 100% adult literacy and school enrollment, slashing dropout rates to basically zero, empowering people for self-employment, and making open learning through things like TV and the internet a central part of the system. The goal was to create a true learning society. But of course, any big vision is going to run into big, practical problems. One of the huge challenges in rural India is the massive number of tiny, isolated, single-teacher schools. They were created with the best intentions, to make sure every kid has access to a school, but they often just don't have the resources to provide a high-quality education. And this is where some really innovative, out-of-the-box thinking comes in. Instead of trying to fix 500,000 little schools one by one, the proposed solution was to consolidate. The idea was to create larger, centralized cluster schools. By doing this, you could pool all those resources for way better facilities and a full staff of teachers. It's a total paradigm shift in how you even think about delivering education. And really, this is what it all comes down to. This quote just gets right to the heart of it all. Building a knowledge society isn't just about economic numbers or productivity charts. It's about unlocking the most powerful, most valuable resource on the entire planet, the creative potential that exists inside every single human being. So we'll end today by turning that question back to you. We've seen how these paradigm shifts can totally revolutionize science and how closing knowledge gaps can transform an entire nation. So let's make it personal. What's the most important knowledge gap in your own life right now? And what's just one small, simple step you could take, maybe even today, to start closing it?